Good morning, students. Welcome back to online session. In our last session, we discussed about computer languages, or we can say the programming languages. So, first of all, we discussed why we need a programming language, the purpose. We compared with a real-time situation, and we discussed the importance of a language, first of all. Then in order to communicate in a similar way, in order to communicate with a computer, or in order to communicate with a computer hardware, we need a programming language, or we need a computer language. So after discussing the programming language as well as the importance of a programming language, we have also seen the evolution from machine language to high level language, how the programming languages were evolved. That evolution also we have seen. So first of all, we said in order to do a communication, in order to build the gap between the two parties or between the two entities, we need communication, isn't it? Suppose if I want to convey something to you, or if I want to command something to you, so definitely I need a language. So there comes the requirement, or there comes the importance of a language. In a similar way, whenever you want to interact with a computer, or whenever you want to express your feelings, or whenever you want to command your computer, definitely you need a language. Okay, such a language, when you are communicating with a computer, we said it is a computer language or it is a programming language. And we also said in the early days of computers, there was only one particular programming language, or there was only one available programming language, that is machine language, isn't it? So the problem with machine language, the computer will understand that machine language very easily, because machine language, we have only two alphabets, I mean two characters in the alphabet, that is 0 and 1, and all instructions we have to code using this 0 and 1 only. So as your internal architecture, or as your internal components of a computer, they made up of electronic devices, and all electronic devices, they can be in any one of the two states, that is, they can be either in off condition, or they can be either in on condition. So the off condition, how we are representing with the help of 0, and on condition, how we are representing with the help of 1. That is the reason why your computer will understand only the machine language, and no other language your computer is going to understand. So the problem with machine language, as we said, we have to code all instructions in binary language, that is nothing but in machine language only. Okay, the two names, I'm simply using vice versa, the two names are having the same meaning. Binary language, machine language, they represent the same thing. Okay, so we have seen a program which was written in machine language, and how difficult it was to analyze, and how difficult it was to remember, and how difficult it was to code, isn't it? So because we have many issues, and that is one particular issue, remembering the what we call all instructions in terms of zeros and ones. That is one particular problem, and the second problem associated with machine language is the machine dependency. Your machine language is machine dependent, so whatever instructions we are going to write on a particular computer, the same instructions you cannot copy into some other computer, and you cannot run those instructions into some other computer. And we said because your internal architecture or internal hardware is also going to play a vital role when you are coding the program in machine language, and that hardware is different from machine to machine. That is the reason why your program written in machine language in one particular computer is not going to execute, or is not going to give the output in some other computer. So the problems we discussed, two. The first is remembering the instructions in terms of zeros and ones, and the second problem is because the program or the instruction set or the machine language, it is different from one computer to another computer. Every computer is going to have its own machine language. Every computer is going to have its own machine language, and for a programmer to write a program, first of all he has to analyze the machine language of that particular computer where he is going to write the program. It is a difficult job, it is a hectic job basically. So because of these issues, because of these problems, and the major issue we said zeros and ones, we can't remember the instructions in terms of zeros and ones, isn't it? As it is a hectic issue where the human, I mean where the user, he has to pay more effort. Instead of simply coding the program, instead of simply writing the instructions, the user has to focus many things. Like the user has to focus, the programmer has to focus on the computer hardware as well. So because of these issues, the developer thought that there is a need to have some sophisticated thing through which the programmer can write his programs. Okay, some sophisticated or some flexible thing with which the programmer can easily write his programs. Okay, with this motto or with this intention, they have gone to different, I mean they were looking for different steps through which they can solve this particular issue. So we said basically a lady programmer, isn't it? Her name was Admiral Grasshopper, I believe. Yes, isn't it? Admiral Grasshopper. What she did? She developed the concept of translator program. She developed the concept of translator program. Then what this translator program will do basically means it will convert a computer program written in one particular language into some other language or into machine language, isn't it? So with that invention, the developers, they got the flexibility of having many different languages. Instead of having that only machine language, now the programmer, I mean now the developers, they got the scope of having many different languages. So immediately what they have done, they have gone for symbolic languages, isn't it? So in symbolic languages, the second stage or the second phase of your programming language evolution, what the developers has done, they have developed symbolic languages. So in symbolic languages, what we were doing, instead of writing all the instructions in zeros and ones, we are using mnemonics. We are using special symbols. So remembering all the instructions in machine language, it is very difficult. But remembering the mnemonics, to some extent, it is easy. So now, at the second phase of your programming language evolution, we have something that we can easily do, isn't it? That we can easily do. So symbolic languages, as they are not in machine language, your computer will not understand. So there is a need, there is a requirement to convert these symbolic language programs into machine language so that the computer can understand, isn't it? So now how we are doing this conversion from from symbolic language to the machine language is we are using assemblers. We are using assemblers. With the help of assemblers, we are converting the symbolic language instructions into machine language instructions. Okay, this is the reason why your symbolic languages were also called as assembly languages, as we are using assembler to convert these programs into machine language. Okay, so your symbolic language programs or your symbolic language, it is also called as assembly language, as we are using assemblers to convert them into machine language. Again, these symbolic language programs or symbolic languages, they too dependent on machine. As we are, when we are writing the instructions, we are using memory unit names, memory module names, like register names in our program, in our program instructions. So when you are using memory names or when you are using memory register names inside your program, then what will happen? Automatically your program will become machine dependent. It will lose the property of portability. It will lose the property of portability. So because of this reason, again, The developers, they thought that whatever they come to achieve, it is not the perfect solution, and they have to look for some more options, or they have to go for some more evolution in terms of programming language development. So next stage, what they have done, they developed high level programming languages, the third stage or the third phase of your programming languages. Okay, they developed the high level programming languages, and these high level programming languages, they are portable. That means you can easily take program code written in one computer to some other computer, and you can execute that program and you can get the output from that program. You will not feel any issues. So maybe in my last class only I have given this idea, and in my last class only I have explained. Okay, so written Google page or written Google website, um, that Google website we can we are downloading and we are executing in many number of computers without bothering about the platform, without bothering about the computer architecture, without bothering about the computer operating system, isn't it? We are downloading the Google website in our mobile, we are downloading the Google website in our tablets, laptops, desktop PC running with Windows, desktop PC running with Mac OS, desktop PC running with Linux. Whatever is the platform, whatever is the computer architecture, whatever is the type of operating system we are using, we are simply downloading that Google website in our computer, and we are opening it and we are doing the search, isn't it? So think of a stage, think of the initial stage, or think of the early days of the computer. Is that kind of application possible with the help of machine language? It is not possible. If we are following only the machine language in order to write our programs, then we have to code, we have to write the Google website, one for each computer in the world, isn't it? One for each computer in the world. It is a highly impossible issue, isn't it? So the advent or the advancement or the evolution, ultimately it is helping, ultimately it is solving many different issues. Hopefully you understood this scenario. So high level programming languages, we said our C, it is a high level programming language. It was developed by Dennis Ritchie in the year 1972 at Bell Laboratories, isn't it? We discussed all these things in our previous session, and I have also shown you the programs written in machine language, the programs written in symbolic language, that is assembly language, and the programs written in high level programming language like C. I have shown you the programs, and we said with the invention of high level programming languages, the evolution, it does not stopped, isn't it? It does not stop. The evolution is continued, and our discussion we did up to 1950s, isn't it? I think I have to go to that evolution chart once again, so that to give the clarity. Yeah, this is your evolution chart. So we said in the 1940s machine languages, in the 1950s the symbolic languages, 60s the high level programming languages. And with in our discussion we are discussing up to high level programming languages only. We are not going beyond that one. So according to your curriculum, or according to your textbook, or according to your syllabi, we have to discuss up to this high level programming languages only. We're not going beyond that. But if you see the evolution in real time, so we said that the developer's intention was very clear. They want to develop a programming language which should be very near to the natural language. A programming language which should be similar to your natural language. The way how we speak with other people, we should be able to speak with the computer as well. Their intention was very clear. The developer's intention was very clear. And they have forecasted in the year 1960, I mean during 1960s, they forecasted that in the future we are going to have programming languages which are very near to natural languages. They achieved it. So we have seen during 1990s the programming languages, they have evolved like your natural languages. So I have given the examples as well. How you people may have the doubts. Sir, you're saying that we can talk with the computer in our natural language. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Nowadays we are doing that one. We are talking with Alexa. We are talking with OK Google. We are talking with Siri. All these NLPs, we call them as natural language processors. NLPs, they are interacting with us like human beings, isn't it? You are giving the commands to them in your natural language itself. So they are processing your natural language and they are responding to your natural language instructions. So to a better extent, we can say the developers have achieved what their goal was. Okay, so in our discussion we have discussed up to high level programming languages. So our C, it is one such example we said. Okay, so all high level programming language instructions, whatever you are coding inside the C language, they have to be converted into machine language once again, so that the computer can understand, isn't it? Your high level language instructions, your computer will not understand directly. Your computer will understand only the machine language. You stick to that point. Your computer will understand only the machine language. And whatever additional programming languages you are using, whether they may be symbolic, whether they may be high level, or whether they may be similar to your natural language, whether they may be NLPs, natural languages, all these, they must be converted into machine language before giving it to the computer. So then how we are converting the high level programming languages into machine level language, in the sense using a process called compilation. And who is doing this compilation? In the sense your compiler is doing this compilation. So over there we stopped, and with I told you that in today's class we are going to discuss about the creating and running programs in high level programming language only. Okay, how we are going to create and how we are going to execute a program in high level programming language, that we have to discuss in today's class. So all these things we have completed, and in today's concept is creating and running the programs. From the very beginning stage, we will how we till we are going to get the output from a program, what steps we do, what steps we follow, all those things we have to discuss over here. Creating and running programs, how we are going to create the programs and how we are going to execute the programs or run the programs to see the output from the program. Okay, so don't expect that we are going to write a C program and immediately we are going to compile it, we are going to execute it so that we see the output. So here we'll discuss all theory part. Okay, complete theory part we discuss over here. As I mean, many in our last doubts session, when I interacted with you people, many of you are very much interested in doing the programming as early as possible. Okay, definitely, but before going to that one, we have to understand many things that we are doing right now. Okay, that we are doing right now. So I thought of giving the stuff very slowly. It will be a better idea. If it is like physical interaction, or it will be if it is like a one-to-one session in your classroom, in your labs, it will be very good. Okay, it will be very good. And as online sessions, they are not that much interactive and we don't even have the lab sessions, I thought of giving these inputs very slowly. Okay, so we are going as our plan, as we scheduled the concept, we are going accordingly. Don't think that we are slowing down the stuff, but like this I can go much faster and I can feed many things in one single class itself, but that I am not doing. And in every class we are discussing only one or two topics, not more than that. Okay, so how we are going to create the programs and how we are going to execute the programs, that concept we will discuss in today's session. So as we all know, your computer hardware will understand only the instructions if they are written in machine language, if they are coded in machine language. This is I told you many times, your computer will understand only the machine language and it will not understand any other language, programming language. Even if you have written your program in some other language, it has to be converted into machine language before it will be understandable. It will be understandable by the computer. Okay, so programs written in high level language like your C language, they need to be converted into machine language with the help of a special program. See, when we are talking about this intermediate thing, when we are talking about this uh, translators, okay, basically what these translators are doing, they are converting the program from one language to another language. Okay, symbolic language to a machine language, or high level language to machine language. So these translators don't think that they are hardware components. They are not the hardware components. They are also software components. They are also like applications. They are also like softwares. Okay, or we call them, they are as we call them as special programs. They are also like special type of programs. What they do, they will take the input uh, of a program written in a different language or written in a intermediate language, and it will convert that program to machine level language, either from symbolic or from high level. If you have written a program in high level programming language, then your translator program, what it will do, it will take that high level language program and it will convert that high level language program into machine level language program, machine language program. Hopefully you understood. So program written in high level language like C needs to be converted into machine language with the help of a special program known as a compiler. So if you're converting a program written in high level language, it needs to be converted into machine level language with the help of these compilers. Okay, with the help of these compilers. And we said the process through which the compilers are converting your high level programming languages into machine level programming languages, we are calling it as compilation, isn't it? We are calling it as compilation. See, the process of compiling and executing whatever steps we are expecting. Okay, the process of compiling and executing a C program, it is having many different steps. Okay, so if you see this following figure, you will understand how many steps we have in that. I mean, how we are going to convert a program written in high level programming language into machine level programming language. Basically, in this process, how many steps we have, all those things we can get from this picture. So first we'll discuss the complete concept, and then I will get back to this picture to give the full clarity on this picture. Okay, so uh, process of creating and running a program, it is a four-step process. Okay, it is a four-step process. So in the very first step, what we will do, we will write and edit the program. Okay, suppose if you have written the program and if you feel that there are some errors in that program, then what you do, you will edit, isn't it? So the first step, writing and editing the program. The second step, compiling the program. The third step, linking the program, and the fourth step is executing the program. So these four steps we have to do in your laboratory whenever we are going to create and whenever we are going to execute your C programs. Okay, first step is writing and editing the programs. Second step, compiling the program. Third step, linking the program with the required library modules. Okay, basically linking procedure, I don't think you are going to understand in today's session. Slowly, as we improve, as we go further, when we do the stuff practically, there you will see the difference and there you will understand all the concepts thoroughly. Okay, even if you are having some sort of doubts, I mean what we are discussing, okay, few steps you will get the clarity, but few steps we need to work on it. We need to see the practical sessions before having the perfect idea of what exactly we are doing. Okay, So as it is a theory concept, I am going to explain this concept uh, like theory based only. We're not going to see any practical session in today's session. Of course, to have a practical session, um, we need some more time. Okay. So the first step is writing and editing the programs, compiling the programs, linking the programs with required library modules, and the fourth step is executing the programs. So these four steps uh, generally we will repeat many times. Even to write a one single program, we repeat these steps many times. So first what we will do, we'll write the program. Let us say you're writing the program, then you're compiling. So in the process of compilation only, when you compile the program, if there are any mistakes, okay, if there are any mistakes in your program, so we as a human, we are not computers, isn't it? We are not computers, we are human beings, and errors are, I mean, mistakes are quite common for a human being. Mistakes are quite common for a human being. When we write a program, it is very common that we commit mistakes. Okay, we commit mistakes in our programming. So uh, generally we call these mistakes as errors. In programming terminology, we call those mistakes as errors. So it is very common for a human to put errors or to do errors in your programming, isn't it? To have errors in your programming. So is it possible that your compiler is going to compile a program with errors, or your computer is going to execute a program with errors? No, it will not execute. Simply, it will not understand whatever you have written mistakenly, or whatever error you have committed. You can't give that error directly to the computer. So it is the responsibility of the programmer to understand the error, to correct that error, and to give a final program without any errors to the computer, so that it will fulfill your job. Hope you understood. Hope you understood this concept. Okay, whatever program you're writing, it must be error free. It must be error free. Then only your computer will understand that program and do the job according to the instructions whatever you have written inside the program. If you do mistakes, if you put errors, your computer will not accept that program. So in writing and editing, what we are doing, we are writing the program. We are writing the complete code of the program. Then we are giving that program to the compiler. So what this compiler will do means, it will check for the errors and it will list out the errors for you. It will list out the errors for you. So whatever errors we have, then whose responsibility is to correct those errors? Again, it is the responsibility of the programmer itself. He has to double check those statements, whatever your compiler is highlighting. He has to double check those statements, and he has to correct those errors. So once the errors are corrected, how you are correcting those errors? Again, by entering the first step only. Again, by entering the first step, writing and editing. Editing, we are saying. So there you are editing the errors, isn't it? You are editing your program. In order to correct the errors, you are editing the program. So if you are editing the program, that means again you are in first step. After going to the second step, again you came back to the first step, isn't it? In order to edit. So assume that the program is completely error free now. Then your compilation stage will succeed, and the program will go into linking stage, and it will also succeed. Then finally the executable stage. So likewise, all these stages, all these steps, we repeat many times. So in the development process of a program, or in the development process of an application, we repeat these steps many times. It is a repetitive approach. It is not a straightforward approach. It is a repetitive approach. And the need for repetition I have given. Okay, there may be errors in your program. So to correct that errors, again you have to go back to the first stage. And after editing those errors, when you are going down in the process, like compilation, linking, sometimes execution. After executing the program also, there may be errors in your program. So, or we can say there may be problems which your compiler cannot detect, or which your computer does not feel like an error, which your computer does not feel like an error. So I will give you one simple example why the compiler is not detecting your error, or why the computer is not feeling that mistake as an error. So let us say we are doing some kind of calculation. Okay, I'm calculating a person's salary. Okay, an employee's salary. So in that salary calculation, so what I have done, generally I have to add the, see, salary, how we calculate. So first we'll calculate, the person is going to have the, okay, let me just take the whiteboard. Okay, the person is going to have the basic pay. The person is going to have his basic pay, and to this basic pay we are going to add the traveling allowance, and we are going to add the house rent allowance. Okay, okay, then DA. Likewise, we are going to add all these things to get the gross pay, isn't it? Gross salary. To get the gross salary, we are adding all these things. So suppose instead of adding, let us assume that you are multiplying all these things. You are multiplying, isn't it? So then what will happen? Yeah, this is not an error. According to your compiler, this is not an error. And according to your computer is also, this is not an error. So simply what the computer will think, that you want to perform the multiplication only. Your computer will think that you want to perform the multiplication only. So it will give the G salary accordingly, gross salary accordingly. It will multiply the basic pay with TA, HRA, DA, likewise. So it will become a huge amount, isn't it? It will become a huge amount. So by seeing that amount only, because your computer, it is not intelligent, isn't it? It is having many capabilities to do, but it is not an intelligent device. It is a dumb device. In my opinion, your computer is a dumb device. Okay, because it will not sort out which one is correct and which one is wrong. We human beings, we are very much intellectual. We are very much intellectual, and we know what is correct and what is wrong. We can do that differentiation, but your computer, it can't. Okay, so if you get the huge amount, by seeing that amount only, the accountant who is responsible for crediting the salaries, isn't it? The accountant will come to know that there is something fishy in the calculation. So what he will do, again he will open the program and he will check that instruction. So he find that instead of plus, we kept multiplications. That is the reason why we are not getting the proper salary. So what he will do, he will replace all these multiplication symbols with this plus symbols. So again, when he is replacing all these, what he is doing, he is editing the program. So he is again in the writing and editing step only. He is again in writing and editing step only. So after replacing that plus multiplication symbols with plus symbols, what he has to do, again he has to compile his program. Then again he has to link, again he has to execute. Like that, it is a repetitive process. In the development of a program, we do these 4 steps repeatedly. Not like one to end, but repeatedly. Not in a single shot. In one shot we'll get the perfect output, but we have to perform this, we have to do these 4 steps repeatedly. When you come to the lab, when you execute your programs, when you practice your programs, there you will understand this thing very clearly. So for that reason, what I am telling you, whatever theory I am explaining over here, you simply remember like steps only. Okay, when you do it practically, these steps will fix into your mind. Okay, so all these 4 steps we have to discuss one by one. So how we are going to write and edit the programs, how we are going to compile the program, what are the different steps we have in compilation, then what is linking, what exactly we are doing in the linking step, and how we are executing the program. So these 4 steps we have to discuss in detail. Okay, so quickly we will go to the first step, that is writing and editing the program. Okay, writing and editing the program. So in short, in order to write and edit a program, we use editors, text editors. Okay, we use text editors. So in our computer we have many different text editors. Okay, either the default text editors which are coming with the Microsoft Windows operating system, or whatever default operating system you are using inside your computer, like Mac OS, it is also going to have one default text editor. Your Windows, it is also going to have a default text editor, and your Android, it is also having a text editor. So whatever text editors, default text editors we have, using the default text editors also we can write our programs. We can write our programs. Okay, so a text editor, what it will do, how it will be, I mean, what is the functionality of a text editor? Text editor is nothing but your notepad application. Most of you are quite familiar with that notepad. So if you don't know what is notepad, here I am showing. Simply press Windows R, then NOTEPADE, notepad you type over here, then hit the enter key. So this is your notepad application. So this is a text editor. Here you can input the text, you can delete the text. Okay, likewise you can do. You can write your C program like this. Okay, so whatever you want to do, you can do over here inside this text editors. Okay, so generally what these text editors will have means they have the flexibility of entering the text. They have the flexibility of changing. Suppose here I have done some mistakes, so I have to remove this and I have to write the proper statement over there. So likewise, okay, they have the flexibility of entering the text, the changing the text, deleting the characters, and also storing the characters. You can even save this file, isn't it? You can even save this file. So storing the characters. So in reality, a text editor is nothing but it is more like a general purpose application. Don't think that this text editor is made for only writing the programs. It is not like that. You can even, if you want to save something into this, some important points, some important daily routine activities, whatever you do, that also you can save, like like points over here, like checklist over here, isn't it? So it is a general purpose application. It is not specific to C programming, or it is not specific to any particular program development process. It is a general purpose applications. You can use this text editor for many different purposes, not only writing programs but also many different purposes. Apart from those many different purposes, you can also use these text editors to write the programs. Okay, this is one particular application of this text editor. Don't think that it is the only application. There is a big difference between saying one particular application and only application. Okay, so yes, yeah, we are also going to have text editors. Let me just close this one. I don't want to save this file. Okay, so more specific text editor. So if you want to take the text editor specific to writing programs, we also have such text editors in the market. So what extra features they are going to have? Being a text editor, what extra features they are going to have means, yeah, inside that text editor you can perform the search operation. So simply by searching a particular line, a particular statement in that program, you can do the editing. Okay, or the text editors, they are also going to support tab, alignment of text, multicolors to multiple commands. Likewise, different features it is going to have. Okay, formatting the commands, copy and paste feature. If you want to copy 2-3 lines of instructions from one place to another place, copy or cut, you can do this thing as well. So all these additional features are also supported by your text editors. If you want more sophisticated, if you want more specific text editor, you can expect all these features from that specific text editor. So what are all the things we said? Your text editor, it can be used to write the programs, as well as to move the copy or move the statements, formatting the commands. Yes, yeah, all these are some of the features, isn't it? All these are some of the features of your text editors. So after writing the program using a specific text editor or a general purpose text editor, after writing the program, what we have to do, we have to save that program. We have to save that program. And after saving that program, we call that file. After saving, what we will get? We will get a file, isn't it? we'll get a file. We call that file as C file. You have to give the extension. When you are saving the file, you have to give the extension as .c extension. Okay, this all these things we'll do in a more specific manner when we go practical. Okay, when we go practically. So what extension we are giving to our programs, in the sense .c extension, like this .c, as they are C programs, we are using an extension .c for C programs, .c. So let us say if you are writing a program with name example, you are saving the file as example. So example.c, like this you have to save your file. So we call this as source code. So whatever file you are going to get after recording the program, after saving the program into it, we call this file as source code file. Okay, source code. Remember this term because we are going to use this term many times. Source code. So in this particular file only we are going to write the complete C program. Complete C program. So this particular file we are saving with .c extension, and we are calling this file as source code file. We are calling this file as source code file. Okay, hope you understood this one. So after writing the source code file, yeah, it is ready for compilation. So whatever file you have written, whatever file you have saved with C code, whatever source file you have saved with C code, that source code file is ready for compilation. So the second stage, the first stage is over. The second stage of our creating and running programs is the compilation stage, or the compiling programs state. So the source code file, whatever you have stored, that will be stored because you are saving the file, isn't it? So that will be stored on the disk, on the hard disk. You have to remember this one. On the non-volatile memory, on the hard disk, it will be saved. Okay, your source code program, where it will be saved, not only source code, whatever files you are saving inside your computer, all those programs, all those files, all those things, all the content will be saved only on the non-volatile memory, so that it will remain permanently, isn't it? So the source code file, it will be stored on the disk and must be translated into machine language, because before giving it to the computer, it has to be translated into machine language, because whatever source code we have, it is in C language, and as we discussed, your computer will not understand the C language, isn't it? So before giving any language code, it must be translated into machine language. And as this C program, it is a high level language program, what we have to do with that program, we have to perform the compilation. And who will do that job for us means the compiler will do that compilation job for us. Already we discussed, isn't it? So here, as you can see, the compiler is responsible for compiling our programs. Okay, the compiler is responsible for compiling our program. So this compilation, it is in turn a two-step process. Compilation is having two separate processes or two separate programs. So what is the first program? A preprocessor, and the second program, the translator. It is having two programs, two sub-programs, we can say. It is having two sub-programs. The first program name is the preprocessor, and the second program name is the translator. Under the second stage, we have two more programs got involved into this process. Okay, so what the preprocessor will do means, inside our C program, when we are writing, we are going to have some preprocessor command. What this preprocessor command, let me give some more time so that I can explain the stuff very clear to you. Okay, so what these preprocessor commands we'll discuss very soon. So how this preprocessor will work means, it will read the complete source code, whatever source code you have given as an input to it. Okay, whatever source code you have given to the compiler, so it will read. So the preprocessor, it will read the complete code line by line and prepare it for translator, the second stage, I mean the second program. Okay, the second program, that is translator program, it will make the program ready for translator program. So in the program, it scans. So as it is doing the scanning process, what it is doing means basically it is searching for the preprocessor commands. It is searching for the preprocessor commands. As you can see over here, I have written it is searching for preprocessor commands. It will search the preprocessor commands, and those preprocessor commands, they are nothing but they are links to some predefined files. What are they? They are links to predefined files. Links to predefined files. And those predefined files will be copied into your source program itself, okay, to form a big program. Okay, so these commands tell the preprocessor to look for the special code libraries and make substitutions in the code. So look for the special library files means these predefined files only. Library files are nothing but these predefined files only. So what the preprocessor commands will do, they will look for these predefined files into your program, and if there are predefined files, they will simply do the substitution of those predefined files into your program. Okay, they will replace the links with the actual code. So as we said, preprocessor commands are nothing but the links to predefined files. So that links, they have to be replaced with actual code. So this preprocessor will replace that one. The preprocessor will replace the links with the actual code. Okay, it will do the substitution. Okay, the result of a preprocessor is nothing but the translator unit. What we call this as the translation unit. So here you can see this terminology, it is very, very important. You have to remember. At any cost, you have to remember. So after preprocessing, whatever content or whatever file we are having, we are calling that file as translation unit. So source code we have written, that source file we have given as an input to the compiler. Compiler in turn having two different programs. The first one is the preprocessor. After preprocessing, we are getting the translation unit, and this translation unit, what we are doing, we are giving it to the translator. So this translator, it actually converts the high level language instructions into machine level language instructions. What it will do, it will convert after preprocessing whatever code we are getting. That complete code will be translated into machine code with the help of this translator. It reads the translation unit prepared by the preprocessor. Who is preparing the translation unit? The preprocessor is preparing the translation unit. So it will read the translation unit, okay, line by line, and write the resulting object module. Object module is nothing but your machine language code. Okay, all these things. Again, it is also an important point. What is object module? It is nothing. Object module is nothing but your machine language code, machine language instruction. Okay, so preprocessor from the translation unit, it will read the instructions line by line and make the object code for those line by line instructions. So that object code is nothing but machine language instructions, and it will create a separate file, and we call that file as object file. We call that file as object file or object module. Okay, object file or object module. The steps are very clear. From the source code, we got the translation unit, and from the translation unit, now the object code or object file. So sorry, here I wrote object file. It is object code or object file. Okay, so these object module is then combined with other precompiled modules. So there are some machine related instructions which are ready. I mean, when you are compiling the program, they will also get compiled and they will become readily available for you. Okay, so this translator, what it will do, it not only translates the translation unit into object module, but also combines those precompiled units, machine instructions. Okay, it will also combine that hardware related information or machine information with your object module. Okay, it will do the dual job. It will do the two jobs. First, it will convert the source code into, translation unit into machine language, and it will also combine the hardware information, hardware related information with your program, with your object module. Okay, so we call this module as a final module. So here we call it as a final module. Even though the final module is in machine language, it is not ready for execution. Still we have to do more two steps, isn't it? Here we have the final module. So after object module, after combining the hardware related information to the object module, what we are getting? We are getting the final module. I will write all these steps, okay, for your clarification over here. First, what we are doing in writing and editing the program, we are getting the source file. We are getting the source code or source file, isn't it? We are getting the source code or source file. So this source code or source file, what we are doing? We are giving to the compiler. So that compiler, it is having two things. In it, it is having the two things. Compiler, it is having the first thing, that is what it is? A preprocessor. Preprocessor. It is having preprocessor. So this preprocessor, what it is doing with the source code? Yeah, it is adding the preprocessor commands, isn't it? It is adding the library files into your source code. And the final code, what we are calling it as? We are calling it as the translation unit. Translation unit. And this translation unit, what we are doing? We are giving it to the translator. We are giving it to the translator. This translator is doing two things over here. First, it is converting this translation unit into machine language instructions. That is nothing but your object module. Object module. Okay, object module. Then combining the precompiled instructions. Precompiled instructions. Precompiled instructions. And these precompiled instructions are nothing but your hardware related information. Hardware related information. Info. Okay. So likewise. Okay, hopefully you got the idea. So first, source code. In .c format we have the source code, source file, that we are giving it to the translation unit. Inside compiler, we are giving it to the translation unit. Translation unit, what it is doing? It is converting the whole thing into object module. Object module. Converting into object module is nothing but converting it to machine language. Line by line, it is converting into machine language, isn't it? Line by line, it is converting it to machine language. So once the once the translation unit, once the source file is in machine language, it is added with precompiled information. That is nothing but hardware related precompiled instructions. That is nothing but hardware related information. After having the hardware related information into it, we are calling this entire thing as the final module. What we are calling it as? We are calling it as the final module. Yes, here I will write the final module. We are getting the final module. Yes, is this, yeah, this final module, even though it is in machine language, even though it is in machine language, it is not ready for execution. The reason, because still we have two more steps. Still we have two more steps. That is, we have to perform the linking and we have to execute, isn't it? Because yeah, linking step is also pending and execution step is also pending. That is the reason why the final module, okay, the output of the translator is not ready for execution. The output of the translator, it is not ready for execution because it has to go through two more steps. So next, the linking program. Okay, the third phase of your creating and running programs is the linking programs. Okay, yeah, this linking program, basically what it will do means, inside your program, when you're writing your program, we are going to use many different functions. Again, what is a function? It is this thing also we need to have a clarity on this one. Okay, a function, as you can see here, yeah, here over here, functions, many functions. Functions, they are of two types. The first one is user defined functions, and the second one is the predefined functions. Okay, functions, they are of two types. They can be written by the programmer itself, or they can be written by the developers. If the programmer is writing the function, we call them as the user defined functions written by the programmer. And if the developer is writing, we call them as predefined. So developer defined. Okay, concept is very simple. If you as a programmer, you are writing the function, we call them as user defined functions. And if the developers, I mean those who have developed the C language, if they are writing the functions, we call them as predefined functions. Okay, so there, yeah, these two functions, when you are using inside your program, they must be replaced with their actual code. They must be replaced with their actual code. And what is a function's code, what is a function's body, what exactly is a function, all these things we will understand when they come into our discussion. Okay, very soon you will understand. Okay, predefined functions, user defined functions, I will give the full idea in our first practical session only. You just remember. So even if I forgot, you have to raise this doubt and you have to clarify. Hopefully I will not forget, but yeah, as I'm giving a hint to you so that you will, in order to understand this concept, these things must be clarified. But without the knowledge, I mean, without having the prior knowledge, even if I give, because this function, it is a very big concept and it needs some time. It needs some more time before we start the discussion of these functions. Hopefully you understood and you will wait. Uh, and yeah, all these functions, predefined functions and user defined functions, they needs to be replaced with their actual code in the source code. So this linker, what it will do, it will do that job. It will replace us. So here you can see, yeah, the linker assembles. Here you can read this one from here to here. The linker assembles all of these functions, both predefined as well as user defined, into the final executable program. Final executable program. It will simply replaces that predefined as well as user defined programs, I mean user defined functions, into a final executable module. After linker, what we are going to have? After linker, we are going to have the executable module. Executable module. Now this executable module, even it is, yeah, it is in machine language and it is ready for execution. It is in machine language and it is ready for execution. It is in machine language and it is ready for execution. So we can execute this executable code and we can see the output. Again, how that execution takes place. Okay, how that after linking, how that execution takes place. Yeah, it is your fourth step of your creating and running programs. It is a fourth phase of your creating and running programs. So executing the program, once the program has been linked, I mean once the linking stage is over, once the linking phase is over, in linking phase what we are doing, basically we are replacing the predefined functions and user defined functions with their code. Only this statement you remember. We are replacing the user defined as well as predefined functions with their code. Okay, and executing the program in the sense, now the program is in machine language and it is ready for execution. The final module, the executable module, whatever we get after linking the program, after the linking phase, that executable module, it is in machine language and it is ready for execution. Whatever final module we got inside the second phase, that is compilation, that final module, even though it is in machine language, it is not ready for execution. But whatever executable module we are getting after the linking phase, that is ready for execution. That is ready for execution. So how this execution takes place, in the sense, to execute the program, okay, the program has to be loaded. isn't it? As we said, if it is in secondary memory, we can't do anything. We can't do any active kind of stuff with a program stored in hard disk. We have to load that program into secondary I mean, into primary memory. Then only it will become an active part. So what we do means, to execute a program, we will load that program into main memory. That is nothing but your primary memory. Okay. Yeah, how we do that means, basically we are not going to do anything. We have a operating system program called run. We have an operating system command called run. This run command, it will do the job for us. Okay, the run command, it will do the job for us. Along with this run, we also use a program called loader. Getting the program into the main memory is the function of an operating system program known as run, and known as loader. So this loader, what it will do, it will make use of this run command in order to load the program, in order to load the program into where, into primary memory or into main memory. So both are same. Primary memory when you are saying, and main memory when you are saying, both are same. Okay, or main memory. Here we have main memory. So in order to load the program, or in order to get the program into your main memory, what we are doing? We are using these two, loader with run command. Loader with run command, they both will load your program, or they both will bring your program from the hard disk to main memory. Okay. After loading everything into the program, I mean after loading the program into the main memory, okay, the program takes the control. Taking the control is nothing but it will take the processor. It will take the processor control. Okay, once the program is in main memory, it will take the processor control and starts the execution. And starts its execution. Okay, so once the program executed, you can see the output. So program executed means you can see the, you can expect the output over here. Okay, you can expect the output over here. So from stage 1 or phase 1 to this phase 4, creating and writing the creating and editing the programs, writing and editing the programs, then we have compiling the programs. Compiler, it is a two-step process, preprocessor and the translator. After that we have linking the program, then the executing the program. Okay, so yeah, after executing, we can expect the output from that program. But in nowadays, whatever IDEs we have, so it is a hectic process. It seems an hectic process, isn't it? First we have to write, then we have to edit, then we have to compile, then we have to link, then we have to load, and finally the execution. So all these things, it is an hectic steps. So at any point the problems may arise, and again we have to repeat the same steps from the very beginning, isn't it? So yes, yeah, in that way also you can do the process. But nowadays when we work in an organization on this particular platform, suppose you are working as a C developer, let us assume, we will not follow the traditional approach. So we study the traditional approach, but when it comes to the following, but when it comes to the doing, practical doing, we will not go in that way. Will not use any text editor to write the program. Will not use the, compiler program. Of course we use, but indirectly we use. And we'll not use the loader to run the to load the program, and we are not going to use the linker to link the program. All these things will be done for you automatically. When you write the program, all these things will be done for you automatically if you use an IDE. That is nothing but integrated development environment. If you use an integrated development environment, all these things, whatever steps we have discussed so far, all those things will be performed automatically for you. Just you have to click some buttons on your IDE. Just you have to press some shortcut keys on your IDE, or just you have to drag and drop some features into your IDE. So you read that one. In today's integrated development environment, your IDE is nothing but integrated development environment. These steps are combined under simple mouse clicks. or pull down menu bars or simple shortcut key combinations. See, just now I said that one only. So how we are achieving all those steps? We are not doing all those steps manually. Rather than doing manually, what we are doing, we are simply clicking some pull down menu bars or pressing some shortcut keys on the keyboard, so that all those things will be performed automatically for you. Okay. In a typical program execution, the program takes input either from the user. Yes, how we execute a program means, yeah, whenever a program executes, it will expect some input. So that input, we as a user, we can give from the keyboard, or it can also take from a file, already pre-stored file. Okay. And after processing the input, what it will give? It will give the output. So that output also, either you can see on the computer screen, or you can store the output into a file. We have the flexibility of doing both the things. Input we can give either from the keyboard or from a file. Output also, either we can see on the computer monitor screen, or we can store it in a file. Okay. Once the execution process finishes, once the complete process of executing the program completes, what the operating system will do means, it will remove that program from the main memory. It will remove the program from the main memory. Okay. So from writing, editing, compiling, linking, executing, removing, all these things we have seen theoretically, but when we do these things practically in our lab, there you will understand very clearly. There you will understand all these things very clearly. So I hope you got some idea. Okay, not the full clarity I'm expecting. Maybe you got some idea about writing and editing or creating and running the programs, what steps we are following and how we are doing. Theoretically, you remember. When it comes to practical stuff, you will understand thoroughly and you will remember forever, hopefully. Thank you very much, students. Already it is getting very late. It is more than an hour, I think. So thank you very much.